Hi, I'm Bill Hall. I'm a resident of Pacifica, and I am presenting Footprints of Pacifica for this evening. We have a very special guest. He happens to be the world's finest and most renowned ragtime piano player. He is also my cousin, so I'm uniquely qualified to question him. Now, Bob Milne has been all over the world playing. He's seen so much that most of us have only dreamed of seeing. And let's start, Bob. Welcome.
Thank you.
And
good to be here.
Let's start at the very beginning. Let's start at your early musical education. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I'll try. Ever since I was as small as I can remember, I was fascinated by music. I grew up listening to it, wondering how does it work that way, and puzzling with it. I became a violin player in grade school, a French horn player in the 8th grade, and I played French horn all the way through the Eastman School of Music College. Was in the Rochester Philharmonic, so I was a classical musician. But at age 22, I became disillusioned with symphonies, and I quit.
So how did you support yourself then?
How did I support myself then?
Yeah.
Well, I played a little piano then, and I had some piano jams, but I was, I suppose I can say this on television, I became a professional pool player. That's about, that's a nice way of putting it.
It paid the school, did it?
It paid for a lot
tuition?
of things, yes.
I understand you got to be a very fine pool player.
Well, they tell me I did. I played exhibitions now against 4 world champions, and I beat one of them 2 different times. Yes.
Maybe we should look at this pool playing, Bob.
Oh my goodness! Look at that. Where did they get this thing? I'm simply making balls, as you can see. To the average person watching this, notice that looks kind of easy. This is something pool players try to do. They don't drive the balls, they just sort of roll them. See how that cue ball just tends to roll like that? Just happened to stop in front of that ball. Did you notice that? Watch this cue ball go right over there where it's going to come out, and I can...
You're clearing the whole table?
Oh, yeah, I'll make them all here. Watch this ball go right between them. And zippity-doo-dah, see that? Just happened to have to line up for this shot. See, it tends to look easy, and this is one of the first things that I learned from playing pool, or when I started learning how to play the piano. I was already a pool player. See that? And so when I started playing piano, I tried to use these principles of motion, which is try to make it look easy. You'll see me doing that on the piano and later in this show. There's only a couple balls left here and there. They're sort of dead ducks at this point. You know, and just notice, see, they all just seem to be sort of straight in. Let's make that one. Put the cue ball right over there. Look how straight in this. Isn't that a lucky roll?
So then you were in. You're in Rochester playing pool.
Well, I did that.
So
yes, I admit to it.
Maybe we'll have a pool exhibition from you, will we?
Well, maybe sometime I can do that.
You moved on, however, to Baltimore.
Yes.
Tell me why. Why did that happen? What did you do? You left the Eastman School of Music.
Yes.
And you went to the Baltimore Conservatory.
Yeah, I was at the Peabody Conservatory. And I also became assistant first horn in the Baltimore Symphony. And I was also into big-time pool playing down there because there were major pool halls. And I also got picked up a job playing the piano. I've got to tell you that playing the piano was so simple for me, I didn't take it seriously. And I was playing 2 nights a week in a place called the Peabody Bookstore. It was not related to the Peabody Institute that I went to. But the bookstore was an old speakeasy left over from the Prohibition days. It was actually a bookstore. You walked in there, the bookcases parted. You walked into this back room speakeasy, the bookcases closed.
I remember I visited you there, and it was a bookstore, and suddenly it opened up. It was a giant nightclub.
Absolutely. That's why you said at the beginning you were uniquely qualified. And you were at that place, yes, you were. Mm-hmm. But I learned how to play piano by playing in these places for live people, and I would get to listen to the people. I always wanted to play something that they liked, and I used them as sounding boards. I play this, I play that. I'd listen to what they said. They liked this piano player, they liked that piano player.
Well, how did you, to satisfy all these people, how did you get as much music as you need? at musical sheets, if they were telling you the things they wanted.
Well, I don't. I read music, of course, because I played the French horn in orchestras, but I absolutely can't stand to read piano music. So I would tell people, oh, don't show me any music, just sing it, and they would. Or else some other piano player would play the piece, and I would learn it that way by listening to it and remembering it in a certain way.
That's amazing. And you were with the Baltimore Symphony, or?
Yes.
And playing the French horn, not the piano.
Horn. The horn during the days of the rehearsals, then pool late into the night, and if I wasn't playing, or it would be my piano job late into the night.
And then you returned to Detroit, where your home was, Rochester.
Yes, Rochester, Michigan.
And you got a job as a French horn player, did you?
No, I did not get a job as a French horn player.
Sorry about that.
Two of my cousins took me down to a German beer hall. I believe this guy was one of them. And there was a piano player playing in the beer hall. Is that a picture of it?
We have a picture of that beer hall right here.
Who's that?
That's you haven't changed it a bit?
I haven't changed it
not a bit.
That picture's from 1964.
I notice you're sitting in a beer barrel.
I'm in a beer barrel.
Yes.
And my friends tell me, Bob, there's no front on the piano. Where did you put your music? And I tell them, you're joking. I've never used music in my life.
Well, how did you happen to get the job there?
Well, my two cousins, I was in there with you and cousin John, and the piano player got up and took a break. And I believe it was you said to the manager, sir, my little cousin here plays a little piano, and you and John physically threw me up on that stand, and I started playing, and I was having so much fun. I think I played for over an hour, and do you remember what happened?
I remember the other poor piano player came back after his break, and he tried to get up on the stand. Everybody booed him, and they wouldn't let you off.
I'm sorry.
And so that you had the job for the night, right?
I had the job for that night and for the next 8 years.
8 years, yes, 8 years. Yeah, I wonder if he's still waiting to get it back, do you suppose? It was quite a colorful bar, wasn't it?
Oh, it was an amazingly colorful place. This place was filled with, it's a German place, it was then, and people would sing German songs, they'd sing American songs. Other piano players would come in and they'd play Ragtime, which is where I first heard it, and I said, wow, that's amazing. And there was no printed music available. I had one chance to listen to it, and I'd try and remember it, and I'd say, okay, I got to be as good as this guy or better if I'm going to keep this job. So I'd start playing it, and that's the way I learned. I got into Ragtime.
And then from this wild bar, smoky, shouting, clapping, booing, hissing, yelling, applauding atmosphere, then you went to some lounges to play.
Oh, I did. I wanted to learn other styles. I wanted to learn quieter styles, so supper clubs were offering me jobs, so I went over there and I'd learn how to play all of the show tunes and quiet background things, which takes a lot of control. You can't be playing loud, and so I wanted to learn how to do that, so I took other jobs too. This is all between the 60s and late 80s.
And then you began doing private parties and shows and things of that sort?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
How did that evolve?
Well, that evolved since people had asked me to tell me we're having a party, so forth. Then finally, I actually quit playing the piano for about 5 years in the late 1980s and early 90s. There are a lot of reasons for that. There were no piano jobs left. The Moog synthesizer had taken over electronic music. All of these old pianos were gone, and I just quit. Well, I was playing at a private party, and a woman, this was in Michigan, and a woman said to me, have you ever played at the Sheboygan Opera House? I said, no. So she said, why not? I said, I play saloon piano, not concert halls. And she says, I'm the director of the place, here's my card. How about next August 19th, which was 9 months away? I said, well, okay. And I walked out on that stage 9 months later, whatever it was, and I didn't know what to do, because I'd never been on a concert stage, so I decided, well, I know how to play up to one person in the beer hall or in the nightclub, so I'm just playing to one person at a time out here. And so I just did what I always did. And it went over so well that they hired me back for the next year, and by that whole little ratio of concert halls exploded. For the last 10 years, I've been playing over 250 performances every year.
Traveling around to various venues around the country.
Yes.
And how, now, you've hit it really big. You play at some very important parties now, at very important gatherings. You've had thousands in your audiences.
Yes.
Not here in Pacifica, but we just don't have room for it here. But tell me how you made that step up. Everybody wants to know how.
Well, one step up was one day, well, I had played a concert for America shortly after 9/11. And basically what it is 45 minutes of non-stop songs about songs of America. And it became very emotional. I was just making it up on the stage and splicing songs together. And somebody recorded it. And somebody sent a copy of it to the White House. And I said, my goodness. And now I was going around, and everywhere I went, people wanted to hear that thing. I was playing it 5 times a week. And then one day we got a phone call at our house, and this voice said, my name is George H.W. Bush. I live in Kennebunkport. What is this America concert? Will you come here and play it for me? And I said, yes. George and Barbara Bush had invited me there. And what's that?
I have a picture here of you in the bushes.
My goodness, how did you get your hands on that?
Oh, it's a miracle, Bob.
I've played for them at least 15 times now.
Here's Barbara and George Bush, and Bob and his wife, and who's this in the middle, these two women in the middle?
The lady in the blue shirt is Patricia Cornwell, the author. Her and Barbara Bush, Barbara does some writing herself, and they met that way. And the lady in the sort of yellowish sweater, as I remember, her name is Stacy, and that's my wife Linda over on the side there with the red jacket. Now this is a very unusual picture, because it was a few years ago. I had some concerts in Canada. I live close to Canada in Michigan. So I just drive over to the bridge to the border, and the Canadian border agent wanted to see my passport. Well, we didn't need passports at that time, and I told him I didn't have it with me, which I didn't need to have with me. And he said if I couldn't prove to him that I was a resident of a citizen of the United States, he was going to throw me out. And I had a sold-out concert up in Toronto that night. I said, good grief. So he's throwing me out. So he said, if you can't convince me right now. So I told him, well, sir, I said, I'm a personal friend of the President of the United States, which I don't go around saying that to anybody, but in order to get out of this, I did. And I said, he says, do you have pictures? I said, can you prove it? I said, yes. So I had to open my computer, and that was the picture that came up on it. And then he pushed a button in his booth, and he said to me, explain this picture to me and take all the time you need. There's nobody in back of you. And I looked in the mirror, and he'd shut down his lane. And I had to sit there for 15 minutes and tell him everything about this picture. Where was it taken? How do you know these people? And going on and on. And he noticed the dog, and he said, that's dog Millie. And I said, yes, it is, even though I knew that dog Millie had died and this was dog Sadie. I wasn't going to argue with him. And then I finally said to him, do you see the van in that picture, sir, that little motorhome? And he said, yes, I do. I said, it's the very one I'm sitting in right now. So finally he leaned in the window. He told me to close up the computer. He leaned in the window and he reached out his hand and he said, and have a nice day, sir. I went to Toronto.
And you've played for a lot of important people. You played for Rockefellers.
Oh, yes.
You named them, and you've probably played for these very important people. Mm-hmm. Now, what among the people you played for was a man called Billington.
Yes.
Tell us about who Mr. Billington is and where that took you.
Well, he introduced himself as Jim when I met him. I was at a resort. And he introduced himself as Jim. I later learned that his name was Dr. James Billington, and that he was the librarian of the the Librarian of Congress, the Library of Congress. And he talked to me at great length about how he wanted to know how it was I learned how to play a piano. So I described it to him. So he asked me to go to the Library of Congress to be documented. And when I got there, I learned I was the first piano player to be documented since Jelly Roll Morton in 1938. And he filmed me for 3 days. Wow. And I played a concert at the end of those 3 days.
I have a picture here of you at the Library of Congress in front of the big audience. There you're wearing a tuxedo. You look pretty handsome.
Oh my goodness.
You know,
no different from the Rathskeller either, did you notice?
No, there's quite a contrast, I think, yes.
Yep, that's me on the stage of the Coolidge Auditorium in the Library of Congress. I was absolutely stunned to be there, and it was, I don't know how to describe the experience.
We have a film segment of part of your appearance at the Library of Congress.
Really?
Yes, indeed. We can show that, I think.
Yes, that's me, all right. I'm playing that song called When You and I Were Young Maggie, written in 1866. This I learned from a piano roll, which I'll tell you more about. I'm duplicating the piano roll at this point right here. I learned the piano roll in the same fashion that I learned everything else, which was I had a chance to hear it once. It was played at a Ragtime conference convention. And I was so taken with the piano roll that I wanted to play it. So that very night, the same day I heard it, I walked out on a concert stage and played it, because that's the way I do everything. And right now, you'll notice that my hands don't move much. This is actually something I learned from pool. The absence of motion. If you remember that when I was running those balls, nothing moved very much. And so right here, I don't move my hands up in the air, because you're not playing the piano if your hands are up in the air. My body doesn't move. I try and conserve all motion, and I'm trying to focus on the center of the piano. This is a second variation of the piano roll, variations on When You and I Were Young, Maggie. I'm playing it in the same key that I heard it on the piano roll, because that was just the easiest way for me to remember it at the time. Little scale here. Now it's going to go into the next variation of this, which is the piano player on the roll played it with his left hand, which is what I'm doing here. Still not moving any more than what's necessary just to get my fingers over the keys that I want them to be over. I was actually studied by a group of doctors about 15 years ago to find out why I didn't have carpal tunnel. It's because I taught my fingers to play the notes underneath them and not contort my hand to reach a note. Now it goes into a minor key. That's a little trick. You have to play a trill with your right hand and at the same time play the melody with your thumb. Here. this last variation is brutal. They were able to do this on a player piano a lot easier than I'm able to do it here, but I did it anyways because I didn't know any better, I guess. But it's just a rapid fire assault on the notes. My goodness, I actually did that, huh?
Yeah, you pretty outstanding, I'll tell you. The thing that most people don't realize is that you hear a tune once. Way back in the Rathskeller days, I remember people used to shout up the name of a song, and you used to be able to play it. You just hear a song once, and you can play it. There's a particularly interesting thing that happened. As you did this thing, you traveled extensively. The State Department had you do goodwill ambassador trips.
Yes, I became a musical ambassador for the U.S. State Department. They sent me to Japan on several occasions, and also to Switzerland on another occasion. And but in Japan, they sent me to Okinawa. I've been there 5 times, I think. But one time in Okinawa, we were on an airplane going to one of the small Okinawan islands. And I was traveling with the Consul General and the embassy members. And they asked me, they said, Mr. Milne, do you know any Okinawan songs? If you do, it means a lot to the Okinawan people. And I said, well, really, no, I don't. And I said, do you have some I can listen to? And one of the guys had a, what do you call, iPod or something, whatever that name is, little thing you put in your pocket, you put on earphones. So I listened to it. It was all in Japanese, of course, and there were 15 tunes on it. And then there was one that I particularly liked. So they asked me, which one are you going to play? And I told them, I just remembered a phrase in it, Zawawa. Oh yes, they said, pretty tune. I said, what's it about? Because it was a woman with a guitar that was singing it. And I said, what's it about? I couldn't understand it. And they told me it was about World War II. I said, what? I'm on Okinawa, and they're telling me to play an Okinawan song about World War II? And so at any rate, one of the embassy ladies, a Japanese lady, she explained to me that the song was about the sugar cane fields, and this is being sung by a little girl because in the war her father was taken off to fight the battles against his will, actually. And many months later, everyone came back to the village but her father.
What was the result of your playing that?
I played it the very last number that night. They told me to play it, and I did, and I didn't know whether I should do it or not. I thought I don't want to offend these people, but I played it. The place went crazy, so I had to walk off the stage towards the Consul General and the embassy people, and these Okinawan ladies were throwing themselves in front of me, and they were crying and weeping. Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you so much for playing our song.
There's a couple other things. I don't want to cut you short here, but we're running out of time. But there's a couple other things I'd like to mention. You have recently gone to Africa to study. I know that you teach at a university, you teach music.
Yes.
But you've gone to Africa to study tribal rhythms. So this was just a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And we have a picture of you in Africa and the dancers with their music. when you were over there.
That's the Wakamba tribe dancing, and the one lady to the left of the photograph, I think it is, she's got a whistle in her mouth. Now they're dancing, and there were 4 drummers, and the drummers were all playing a different rhythm. I could not believe it. And she was tooting on the whistle a 5th rhythm. I've got no idea how this, and they would all go up in the air at the same time without throwing signals to each other. This was absolutely unbelievable. I filmed and recorded that.
Oh, that's great. Here's a picture of you on an aircraft carrier.
Yes, I
were
played.
Invited to play on the Eisenhower, I believe.
No, that's the USS George Washington.
the
I
George
played for our
Washington.
troops at sea. That was 10, 11 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was asked by Colonel Yank Rutherford, who signed this picture to me up here, Lindell Rutherford. He was a captain of that thing, and he took me and Linda up into the his control tower up here, but I played a performance down below where in the airplane hangar.
One last little story. I want you to tell me about Ireland when you went over there. Can you make it very brief? Because we're
Ireland, I played in Northern Ireland in the city that's called Derry. If you look on the map, it's spelled Londonderry. But I came to learn that Northern Ireland was trying to pick up its tourist image. So they were sponsoring this huge music festival out of the top of Europe, and they'd invited me to it for some reason. And so here I am, and I'm wondering why it says Londonderry, why isn't it
but
Derry?
you were worried.
Yeah, oh yeah, because it turned out that the IRA was sponsoring the thing. But they assured me, do not worry, Robbie. They said, you're in the safest place in Ireland. Oh, geez, okay.
Bob, we really appreciate your coming all these times to help us with our project of turning the Little Brown Church into a historical museum for the city. And we thank you very much. We thank you for your appearance here. Now, I just want to say that if you're my good cousin and friend, you'll continue to come each year, and we'll hopefully fill up all your venues. Thank you very much.
I wouldn't miss it for the world. Thank you, Bill.
All right.